Hello, everybody. My name is Drew Duncan. We're live-ish. I'm wherever you listen to podcasts, guys. Sync 57 Sports is available on iTunes, Spotify, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, wherever you are listening to podcasts. We are there. The show is quick, to the point, with the topics, I should say. And obviously, the main topic right now of debate is whether or not the NFL rules need to be changed for overtime. Right? We have this discussion seemingly every season now, especially when the playoffs are happening and everything is on the line. Okay, last weekend we saw a completely different result. Right? Mahomes wins the coin flip. They march down. They score. Buffalo doesn't get a chance. People go, well, the overtime rules need to be changed. This isn't fair. Then, of course, yesterday, we see in the AFC Championship game a completely different story. They win the flip, but on a hell of a catch, Cincinnati gets the ball back. They get in field goal range, third down, kick it, they win the game, period. Do the rules need to be changed? Look, I can agree with people who want to see a rules change. I'm not opposed to it. I will tell you this, though. We forget that this is the professional level. This is not amateurism the way that it is in college athletics. All right. Now, sure, the overtime rules for college are a lot more entertaining. All right. But they are given that chance. And remember, there was a point in time when there was no overtime in college football. It's still a fairly new thing, guys. There was a time when there was no OT. And if the score was tied at the end of the game, then that's just the way that it was. Let's not forget that. All right? We need to remember that at the professional level, you are expected to adhere to a professional style of play. So you can either do what the Bengals did and make a stop, or you can go to social media and cry and complain about how it's just not fair that the other team got the ball first. You are expected on defense to make a play, to make a stop. That is your job. It doesn't matter what offense you're going up against. If it's one of the best in the NFL or one of the worst in the NFL, that is what you are expected to do, and that is make a play, make a stop, whether it's a turnover on downs, whether it's making an interception, creating a fumble, blocking a field goal, whatever the case may be, you are expected to make a stop because you are paid to do so. And, of course, the antithesis is on offense, if you get the ball first, you're paid to go down and score. That's just the way that it is. And I know a lot of people point to baseball and they go, well, baseball gets another chance. And, in the NBA, it's not just the first score and da-da-da-da-da. But those are two different athletic altogether. It's a completely different game. Baseball, basketball, hockey. It's altogether different. You are expected to make a stop. You got a whole football team out there. Somebody's got to do something. That's what the Bengals did. There are no excuses for not being able to make a stop. That's a point-blank situation, and I don't care what anybody says. So ultimately, when all is said and done, I don't take issue with the rules not being changed. And to be honest with you, I think for the way that the rules are designed, they're fairly fair. Because the rule is, if you score a touchdown when you get the ball first, it's the end of the game. But if all you can do is muster a field goal, then the other team gets an opportunity to either score a touchdown and win the game or kick a field goal and tie the game. And then we just go, okay, now it's sudden death. Whoever scores next wins the game, period. In other words, you've had your chances. And I know that a lot of people are, regardless of the outcome and how the Chiefs played after the second quarter last night in that football game, which, by the way, all the credit should go to the Cincinnati defense. I know a lot of people are going to point out to the offensive prowess of a team that's got Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill. Your head coach is Andy Reid. But the fact of the matter is, Cincinnati deserves a lot of credit. And I'll be honest with you, Zach Taylor, the head coach of the Bengals, is not getting enough credit for what this team has accomplished. You know, there is a lot of bashing out there of coaches who go from the collegiate level because, don't forget, he was at Texas Tech. And if I remember right, he had Baker Mayfield and Patrick Mahomes during his time there. And Texas Tech wasn't exactly the best football team in college football, let alone the Big 12, while he was there. He made the right draft choices. He understood how to make adjustments in the game for the AFC Championship game. They made adjustments, the week before. Don't forget, they've been playing down a lot. And a lot of people didn't think that this football team was going to be able to make a run because they started out 5-2. But then from there, they went 5-5 down the rest of the way. From 5-2 to 10-7, if I remember correctly. You've got to understand, nobody really thought that this football team was this good. And Zach Taylor got them to play at a high level. He made in-game adjustments that were necessary in order to win football games. Now, the Super Bowl in and of itself is going to be a different ball game because as good as Joe Burrow is at escaping the pocket and doing all those things, boy, they're going to have to do something about that offensive line. Don't forget, Joe Burrow's been sacked more than any other quarterback in the NFL, if I remember right. He and Ryan Tannehill were 1-2. So let's not forget that AD and Von Miller are still on that defensive side of the ball for the Rams, who, by the way, have played pretty good football overall in the playoffs. Now, if I remember right, last night, they didn't get a single sack. But I'm going to tell you something right now. As bad as that offensive line is for Cincinnati, they're going to get at least one or two. And don't forget, Von Miller is a former Super Bowl MVP. That defense for Denver carried them to that win. I know all you Manning fans are going to say whatever you want to say, but that offense was so hit and miss all season long. Manning led the league in interceptions for 4 out of the 5 weeks that he was riding the pine in Denver that year with an injury. He had, 3 turnovers in that Super Bowl? What was it, 2 interceptions and a fumble? That defense carried Denver, led by Von Miller. Let's not forget that at all. As far as the games have gone in the playoffs, they have been really good. And I don't want to hear this. It's just so weird, all the overtime games this year. Folks, that's football. The game is constantly changing. Superstars that we have seen in the league for years are no longer there. Peyton Manning retired a couple of years ago. This is the end of Ben Roethlisberger's career. We don't have Eli Manning anymore in football. Yes, I said it. He was a superstar. He was 2-0 in the Super Bowl, and they were both wins over Brady and the Pats, including an undefeated Patriots team that they had lost to right before the playoffs started. Let's not forget that. Let's not forget that Eli and the Giants ended a 24-game win streak at Gillette Stadium. Let's not forget that. Eli would have the record for most consecutive games started had it not been for him getting benched by a coach who, by the way, got fired probably because of that move. So let's stop pretending that Eli wasn't that guy for a minute. The fact of what I'm saying is you're going to have to be tough to play quarterback in this league. And Joe Burrow has proved that he is tough. And players want to play for a guy that is tough. They will go over the middle and make catches for you because they see how tough you are. You don't see Joe Burrow getting on the television complaining about this and complaining about that. It's just not where he is. That's not who he is. And the game itself is not rigged because of a bunch of close games. Folks, the game of football has changed dramatically in the NFL. A lot of teams are finally realizing we are going to have to start running the spread option look. Look at how successful the Chiefs have been with it. Look how good Mike Vick was when Andy Reid really showed him how to be the true passer. Once he was under Andy Reid, he became more than a good quarterback. He became a great quarterback. You start looking around the league, what are you looking at? Guys like Burrow who can make plays with their legs. Guys like Mahomes, their predecessors, Mike Vick, Donovan McNabb, John Elway, Randall Cunningham, Steve Young. Not only were they considered anomalies, but for the most part, they were told, you really can't play in the NFL. You can't play in the NFL because you just run the ball too much. We need a pocket passing guy. I interviewed Mark Schlereth when Denver was looking for a quarterback years ago. Oh, Andrew, they want a pocket passer. 77% of all plays that are timing plays work on time. All this other nonsense. Not wanting to admit where the game of football is. It's just a point of fact. And with the modernization of the game the way that it is today, how it is played today, it's changed so much that schematically it's difficult. Matchups are what create issues. In Cincinnati, matched up well against the Chiefs. They matched up well against the Titans. Do you understand that? And with the added game this year, you're seeing more out-of-division games. Guys, let's not forget there's not that many teams in every division. This isn't college football where there's 12, 13, 14 teams in a conference. It's the NFL. And you can only have so many divisional games from the way that they have the league currently set up. So you are going to see closer games because you are going to see teams that are matched up better, especially during the course of the season. The game of football is not rigged. If it was rigged, tell that to Julian Edelman in that catch in the Super Bowl. Tell that to the Giants with their catch in the Super Bowl. Talk to me about rigged then. And before anybody starts going into the Patriots and Raiders game, blah, blah, blah. First of all, the only reason that the Patriots knew about that tuck rule was because it had actually worked against them when they played against the Jets earlier that year. That was how they knew about that rule. It's not their fault for knowing the rule book, even if it was through a series of events. Now, do I believe that players can get approached? Hey, man, I ain't nobody's fool. We could go and look at the NBA, right? The Lakers versus the Kings, where there were referees that allegedly admitted that, yeah, we were approached. But does that mean that the game is rigged? They were trying to rig the game, and ergo, the way that the game was going, it shouldn't have been that close. It shouldn't have been that good of a series, right? So ultimately, when all was said and done, the players had nothing to do with it. And I'm going to tell you something right now. There's over 130 teams in Division I college football. There's 32 teams in the NFL. Do you have any idea how many players that is, guys? What is that? Somewhere in the neighborhood of like 9,500 in college football. There's like 397 in the NFL. You think you're going to keep that many mouths quiet? Do you? Yeah, sure. Football is listed as entertainment. All sport is listed as entertainment because it is entertainment. That's what it is. And it's supposed to be entertaining. Are you not entertained? Even if it was rigged, are you not entertained? Stop crying because your team didn't make it to where you want to go. Foolish plays by the Dallas Cowboys at the end of a game in a critical situation. Because they're ill prepared. They're not ready for that moment. That's all there is to that. Why do we have such a hard time accepting that even at the professional level, there are players and coaches just not built for certain moments? Look at Aaron Rodgers and Peyton Manning, how many one-and-dones those two guys have in the NFL. just not prepared for certain moments. Certain teams know how to prepare better. That's all there is to that. And if you don't like it, then oh well. Because I guarantee you, nobody's risking concussions. Nobody's risking life-threatening injuries, career-ending injuries for basically WWE stuff. Nobody's doing that. Nobody is going to risk their entire livelihood. Ask Bird with the Jets about being paralyzed from playing football. Do not talk to me about it. Ask Terrell Davis having to give up the game of football, not only because of that injury, with a lot of people that blame Brian Griese for that play, but he had horrible migraines. He just couldn't do it anymore. Don't talk to me about the NFL being rigged because the games are close. They're supposed to be close. If it was a blowout, you'd call it boring. Oh, but because they're good games, you call it rigged. Make up your mind. You can't. You know why? Because there are just some things that we can't comprehend. And we're so used to fake everything. Reality television is called reality television when we all know it's fake. We want to grasp onto something real. We're involved in first-person video games, and we see all this fakeness around us. Sometimes it's just too damn difficult to understand reality. And the reality of it is, these games were not rigged. Nobody was in favor of anybody. And Cincinnati, with their market that they're in, believe me when I tell you, they're not the most marketable team in the NFL. If that was the case, we would see Dallas playing in a Super Bowl at least one time in the last 26 years. The marketability of that franchise is still through the roof. Whether you're a Cowboys fan or not, that's just the reality of the most popular team with the most jersey sales, the biggest bucks, the amount of money that they're worth. It's just the reality of things, and it's the way that it is. With their marketability alone, and Jerry Jones basically being the promoter that he is, let's face it, in a Super Bowl, the numbers would be astronomical for the Dallas Cowboys playing any team. You think the Rams and the Bengals are marketable? Just because the Rams are in LA doesn't mean that they're a marketable franchise. And even then, if it was rigged, any promoter could take anything and make it big. That's worth their salt anyways. Look, bottom line, the NFL is not rigged. It's not fake. The overtime rules do not need to be changed. If they do change them, I'll see whether or not I agree with the rule changes. But for the time being, the rules don't need to change. You're professional athletes. You're paid to make plays regardless of the situation. And you are paid to understand situational football. You're paid as a coach to understand situational football. That's the way that it is. And the game has changed so much in how it's approached and how it's played that matchups are changing. And with free agency, come on, the Rams picked up Von Miller in the middle of the season. They picked up Odell Beckham Jr. in the middle of the season. The way the game is now, the way that trades happen. Look at what Antonio Brown did, man. Just skirt. PC, I'm out. Deuces, kid. Whatever his reason for it was, we may never really know. Right at the end of the year, just, I'm out, man. Peace out, son. Literally. Think that's rigged? You think Antonio Brown doing that was rigged? For what? The Buccaneers don't need attention. They've got Tom freaking Brady. who, by the way, allegedly a fake announcement was made about his retirement. And, of course, Brady, oh, no, I'm coming back, player. That's how big Brady is. It was all over the place. Bucks don't need attention. You don't need Antonio Brown to do what he did, to draw attention to anybody. He just made a choice. That was it, folks. I hate to break it to you. And don't tell me, oh, you're just a fan. You want it to be real. No, first, I do want to be entertained. I'll admit to it. But I'm telling you right now, I've talked to plenty of athletes in my day. And I can't think of a single one that would say, you know, man, I just really love risking my body for fake stuff. Well, WWE guys are willing to. Has anybody watched the WWE lately? It is not near what it used to be. Okay? It is not. It is an acrobat show now. The amount of guys getting waylaid with chairs and showing color, bleeding. No. Ask David Rickles about it being fake after his eye exploded from the shot he took from MVP. And him telling me in an interview, man, I was not going to risk my life and my livelihood. I had kids to think about in that moment. Tell him that it's fake. Seriously. All right, everybody. I'm Drew Duncan. This is Sync 57 Sports. I think we pretty much covered everything, right? Anything that's worth covering. And real quick, I'll be honest, I wish Brady would retire. Everybody else just needs a legitimate chance, man. I'm so tired of everything having to go through Tom Brady. I wish Nick Saban would retire. I'm tired of everything having to go through Alabama. But they're great, and it's just the way that it is. Guys, we are on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Deezer, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to the podcast, we are there.